and begin sharing. So I just wanted to, as Katarina said, my goal here tonight is just to introduce myself to you, introduce some of the ideas that I have for the Office of Public Records and some of the things that I'm working on so that you all, as friends of the DC Archives, kind of know what's going on and the direction I'm trying to move with the Office of Public Records. So I will start my presentation and share my screen. So, and I see it sharing, okay. So I will start with telling you about who I am, since part of this is to introduce myself. I received my BA in history from Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland in 2004. I have an MA in Public History and Archival Administration from Howard University, which I received in 2006. And I received my PhD in US history in 2009, thanks to the great support of Elizabeth Clark Lewis, who helped me move through. And I have worked in archives since I started at Howard in 2004. My introduction to archives actually came 2 years before that, when one of my professors, Roger Davidson, took me to the National Archives for a research project, to work on a research project with him. And I held one of the Freedmen's Bureau records, and I was shocked that you could hold a document that was over 100 years old. And so I said to myself, wow, I want to work with documents. I want to share that with other people. And so that has kind of been my mantra since I've started working in archives, sharing documents and promoting access to documents. I worked at the Maryland State Archives. I worked at the National Archives and Records Administration. My longest stint was at Howard University as an archivist in their university archives. And then I took over their I started their digital production center and started their digitization program at Howard. I am a historian, I'm a trained historian. So I teach African-American history, US history, modern European history. I have taught African history, but I'm not really proficient in African history, but I stick with US history. And I talk about and lecture on digitization and digital preservation, since that's really been my focus since 2014, focus on digitization and digital preservation, which is something that I'll talk about later. I'm bringing into the DC Archives, and I do apologize, my throat is getting a little scratchy. So I know most of you know about the DC Archives, but I'll just give a brief overview for those who may not. The office was established February 11, 1986, to review and approve agency record schedules, train records officers, service historical records in the custody of the archives, manage temporary records, and be the custodian of the Library of Government Information. So currently, we have 8 people in the archives, including myself. So I am the Public Records Administrator. And then we have Bill Branch, who most of you know, a lot of you know, he's our Senior Archivist. Ali Rahman has been promoted to the Supervisory Records and Information Specialist. And we just brought on at the end of January, Nicholas Welsh, who is our new Processing Archivist. So he's already in the mix and doing some great work, and he's only been there for less than a month. So really excited about that hire. We have Andrew Washington, who's been working with being a Records and Information Specialist. We are hiring another Records and Information Specialist. That position, I'm happy to say, has been filled, and we're just working on onboarding the person. And then our staff assistant is Ishmael Childs, who just came on this past year as well. So he started in October. So that's kind of our staff so far. We're working to, of course, improve that, increase the staff as we prepare to move into our new facility. The Office of Public Records has 3 divisions: the Public Records Center, DC Archives, and Library of Government. So the Public Records Center is where the temporary records go. we store and manage the temporary and permanent records until they are transferred into the DC archives. So this is kind of the first step. Once they leave the agency, they are semi-current records that go into the Public Records Center. So not active records, but not ready to go into the DC archives. We then have the DC archive, which holds the permanent and historical records of DC. And so we have birth records and death records, marriage records. Many people like to see that. Original wills, and it's some really fascinating stuff. Since I've been there, I've been going through the accession records and looking at kind of what's actually in the archives. And there's some really fascinating things in there that I'm excited to say we're working to make that available to you. So we have the Library of Government Information, which has reports, monographs, periodicals, circulars, printed materials, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So printed materials basically from the DC agencies are held in the Library of Government Information. So that's the background of what the Office of Public Records has been and is. And now what I would like the Office of Public Records to be is an office that, and this is basically almost the same, just slightly different wording, but an Office of Public Records is to collect and preserve documents of historic value to the government and people of the District of Columbia. This means storing both permanent and temporary records of the district government, preserving documents and artifacts of historical value, and providing for historical research. And then the vision is that we become a real 21st century accessible archive that meets industry standards. As a record center that supports the archiving of physical and born digital records, and a library of government that maintains a complete collection of government-related publications. And so basically establishing complete control of both paper and electronic records. Now my goals, and these are the goals that I put in place for my first year in office, and since I'm still in my first year, I'd say no new goals yet. So my first is to develop a digital program that includes a digital archive. Since I am basically a digital archivist, that of course is always at the top of my mind. And so one of the things that I set out to do as I started was to get a digital archive for us. And so we actually have acquired a digital archive. It's not available to the public as we have to populate it, but that goes to establishing a digitization program so that we can digitize documents in the archives and make those available to the public soon. So we've already started working on that. We've digitized birth records, early birth records. We're working on digitizing the land record files, which I know I'm getting ahead of myself. So when you see this on the next slide, don't judge me. But the land records and speeches of Marion Barry. And so basically increasing accessibility of the physical and digital archive. So of course, as you know, the accessibility of the physical archive will be increased with our new facility. Once it opens, we'll be able to accommodate many more researchers, have much better control over the records as they are used. And then with our digital archive, it will increase the accessibility of those records that people find most interesting. So now they'll be able to access them around the world. And I did skip one part of the digital program part. We are acquiring a digital preservation system so that we can begin preserving electronic records and born digital records. So the system that we're acquiring can capture websites, social media sites, and facilitate the ingesting of born digital data from the agencies. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited to see that come online. We're working that through the process now. And last, but certainly definitely not least, is to develop a state-of-the-art physical archive for DC. And so we're working with Hartman Cox, DGS, and other stakeholders to build an archive that is environmentally conscious, educational, and accessible. And so I mentioned it before, but our current projects, we're going to create a searchable catalog for the DC archives. Right now, we have a content management system or a collection management system, I'm sorry, that we're using and we're inputting data into now. So that's actually going to tie into the digital archive so that you can search both in the same place. So you won't have to go to two websites. So you'll be able to search the digital archive and find what's in the paper archive on the same site. Then we have digitization projects. As I mentioned, the birth records, mayoral speeches. We're going to have a collection of mayoral speeches. Right now, we're digitizing Marion Barry's speeches. We're hoping to have Mayor Bowser's speeches as well to include in there, and some others. And then digitize historic images. So those can be made available through the site as well. And then working with the records. As you saw, we brought on a processing archivist. His main focus will be just processing collections so that we can build finding aids to make them available to the public. So that's one of the major focuses. And then surveying records, because there are a number of records that are not in the facility, that aren't at the Federal Records Center in Suitland, but they're in other facilities around DC, some in Maryland. And so we've developed a project to survey all of those locations so that we know exactly what's there, what's permanent, what's temporary, what we need to bring into the new archives, and what needs actual mitigation. So we have a project to do that. And we're moving to get that funded for this upcoming year. And I have physically gone to many of these places just to see for myself, you know, what's actually going on. So part of my plan is to also bring opportunities for students. So I brought in district leadership interns to work with us. We just brought on our first work study students to begin assisting us. We have some graduate student interns, and I'm excited to say we have our first high school student intern who is part of the real world history program. And so he's working with us to support our work, but also to develop a History Day project. So hopefully he develops a great project and wins DC History Day and then goes on to the National History Day. And I have to recuse myself from judging because he is in the National History Day contest. But he's a great kid. He's from Georgetown Day School. So we're excited to have him on board. So building opportunities for students to come in and learn about archival work and also gain valuable experience and knowledge. So to support records management, because that's also part of what we do. I have a lot of information here, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna try to provide increased support for the city's records managers. Gonna reorganize the records management division to provide a specific contact for agencies. So spread the wealth a little bit. That's why we're bringing on the records and information managers to say, okay, here's your agencies that you work with, remain in contact with them, provide support for them. We had a district-wide records managers meeting at the end of October, which I think went really well. We brought together about 50 of the district's records managers. As you know, we have 90 agencies, so to have 50 was really great. That's over 50% were there, so that's good. I want to provide online resources to support the records managers. That's already in place. We also, one of the systems that I didn't mention was we acquired a digital content management system that allows us to provide subject guides. And so one of the subject guides that we put together, one of the first ones was a guide for records managers that gives them instructions on how to fill out paperwork, resources that they can call if there's a disaster, resources from COSA, the Council of State Archivists, National Archives training for records managers. And to that point, number 3, revitalize the training unit under the Office of the Administrator. I am working to complete a records manager manual started by Clarence Davis. many moons ago. And I'm using that as the foundation for an online records manager course that I'm putting together now. So the staff they're my guinea pigs. So as I finish, okay, do this training and tell me if it works. Answer the question, see if you fail the test. So far they've been doing good on the test. So I'm working on building trainings to support the records managers. Many of them that I've talked to have said that they feel like they need a little more support and a little more training. So that's what I'm working on developing as we speak. So I have a lot going on, but also the new Office of Public Records is moving along. We are in the concept design phase. We put out our first concept of what we think the building should look like. That is open for you all to review and provide comment, and I'll tell you how you can do that on the next slide. So our next steps is, and it says design and administration, yeah. So completing the concept design, moving into schematic design, zoning, and the permitting process. Now we will have community engagement throughout this process that has been built into our schedule. So we're gonna start, once we start the process, we're gonna start to have public meetings and public engagement hearings. Well, not hearings, but public engagement meetings to talk about the building, get feedback from the public, share where we are, and just share what's going on. And part of that is me coming out to speak to groups about what we're doing, sharing where we are in the process, and just kind of talking to people. So this is just one of the pages from the current concept design. If you hadn't seen it, I wanted to share that with you. I'm watching my time, so I stay on time. So this is just, I like this because it shows the greenery that is there. Now this is just a concept, so it might change. Don't hold me to this. Don't say, well, you showed me that image and it doesn't look like that. We're not there yet. It's just a concept. So this is the concept of the outside of the building. I'm going to switch screens and show you, there it is, just a couple more pages from the concept design. And I'll tell you where you can find this. This is available on the DGS website if you want to download it and look at it. So currently, this is what the facility would look like in the space. We're going to be located on the campus of the University of the District of Columbia. We're working with them to settle all that now to make sure everything's good. And I know I'm trying to work, my mouse the scroll has blackened out because it just wants to mess me up today. So I'll just switch to this. So this is where it would be on the site of Building 41. The plan is to tear down Building 41 and construct a new purpose-built archives. So this would be the outside of the building. This is kind of what we see as the beginnings of the first floor. So a loading dock that comes in, one for service, one for records, so that this one's always clean for records. Intake processing, mailroom, secure receiving, their records that need security, and then a quarantine room if there are records that are dirty and really need to be kept away from everything else. Research room, this isn't necessarily a design of the research room. This is just, these are the elements that we know need to be in the research room. So there is no real design of that yet. These are just blocks to say, yeah, we know microfilm research, AV research with the Jazz Archives material here. We know we need a research library, a central desk that fits staff members, someplace for carts, someplace for some research computers, then our research tables out in this area, and an area for consultation. We do have a patron lounge and vending, an exhibit area. The plan is to have this be like a main exhibit, but also have a lobby exhibit. So all of this space here would also have exhibits in it. An information desk, security, and then a multi-purpose room that could be broken down into 3 classrooms for workshops or smaller events. And then we move to the second floor, which has paper storage, cool storage, cool storage processing, the secure vault, space for UDC's University Archives and Jazz Archives. We are going to share space with UDC's archives. So that's exciting, working together. Paper processing, I know this has windows, but blacken those out. It'll be fine. But more paper and more paper storage. As you know, we have a lot of records. So storage. Third floor, more paper storage, more record center storage. And these are different types of storage. There's things that are in the archives are accessed much more frequently than things that are in the record center storage because they are semi-current. And so they are different types of archival systems in each room. That's why they have these different outlines. Then this is sort of work areas for OPR, Director's Office, the Office for the Head of Records Management, Senior Archivist, then multi-purpose space. You saw there was another space on the second floor. You can see it over here for project room and meeting space. Paper processing, third floor, as well as on the second floor, a wellness room, restrooms, of course. And then on the third floor, we have included a workspace for records managers who need to work in the building. So they have a space to work as well. Because right now they kind of work in the stacks. So we want them to have a space where they can work as well. And then this is, of course, all record center storage. And so that is just a brief overview of where we are with the new facility. I did not mean to close that, so give me a moment. I'm going to reopen that screen because it has a website link that I want to share with you. So if you look through the concept documents and you would like to share your thoughts with me, there is a website, opr.dc.gov/comments. And you can go there. There is a link to the DGS page with these documents, but there's also a form there where you can share your thoughts with me about the concept design and, the new building. And I will type this in the comments because I know that is oh, thank you. See that? You already beat me to it. So you can go there and you can share your comments with me about it. It comes directly to me. So I will have them and I'll read them. I read all the comments. I know we received comments on our program requirements document. Our program requirements document. So thank you all for submitting your comments to that. We did use that to make changes to the overall program documents that is now up on the DGS website that you can see. So thank you all for that. We did use that to update some of our thinking and explain some things a little further. So thank you all for your comments. We appreciate that. But you can share them with me, opr.dc.gov/comments. And so thank you. And oh, I forgot to mention, we do have, thanks to our new content management system, we have a site, opr.dc.gov, where we can put out information. But that's, so there you find the guide for the records managers, and there's a guide for requesting records from the Office of Public Records. So finished 1 minute late, but I had, and so thank you all for coming and thank you for your time, and I'm open to questions.